just wanted to touch on the spaces feature that's built into Bluebeam. Spaces are designed to separate areas out within drawings, so you can isolate and group items together of a similar ilk. An example of that is recently tendered and secured a project for a customer, and the contractor, their preferred method of payment is to pro forma, split everything down in advance to give you a pro forma invoice, and you just book in the areas as percentage complete. So what I've done in this instance is internally I've set up spaces for each floor, and I've set up zones, and then what I've done is all the internal walls, I've basically marked them up, and any markup you make within a zone stays within that zone, and it is allocated to that zone. So as an example of that, so we're on the ground floor here. I've got a space called Zone 1 that I've created in the Spaces tab, and all these polylines are basically my internal partitions, and you can see from the markups list that all these polylines and the quantity of them is allocated to Zone 1. So what that then allows me to do is export this at the end, and I will have a record of what the total girth of the internal partitions are in Zone 1 on the ground floor. So then comparing that to my overall takeoff, I then do a percentage complete comparison, and then just proceed to split the lift money out that way. So there's one for every floor. Excuse me. First floor's got 3 zones. Second floor 3 zones, and I can quite easily work out the amounts of that particular type of work in that particular area to then put a value to it based on my previous takeoff. And it not only works on plan, elevationally works as well. As you can see here, I know what the value of my external envelope is. So all I've basically done here again is using spaces, is create an overall of the elevation that I've measured. That gives me an idea of what the percentage of the elevation in this drawing is as a percentage of the overall, and then I proceed to break it down into floors, and further to that, once I'm in my spreadsheet, I go on to break it down into lifts, 50, 60, 50%, 60%, whatever you want to, however you want to split it. Excuse me. The thing with spaces as well is you've got to be mindful of it needs a bit of planning, because they can't be overlapped, but they can be nested. That means that you can have a space within a space, but you can't overlap them. If you look at the Bluebeam University, there's some really good in-depth tutorials on using spaces, but it's just a very handy, quick way of splitting a job down prior to valuation for pro formas, and you also get a handy legend that you can send over to the other surveyor to have a legend as to what goes where. And I'll just show you the output of the spreadsheet that I produced based on the back of this. So effectively you can see from the elevations, what I've done here is I've got I know what my overall quantity for the whole project is. So elevation A, I can then derive that that's 9% of the overall project, and each one of those lifts in turn is a percentage of that 9%, and we then attribute a value to it, and then we split it into however many lifts we actually want to. And likewise with the on plan splits, again I've worked out the percentage of those internal partitions based on a per zone basis, and then compared that to the overall that I know from my original takeoff, and you get a value in the lift split accordingly. I will do a very in-depth tutorial on spaces at some stage, but this is just a quick intro to show you how useful they can be. Hope that helps somebody.